Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this latest edition of the eCommerce Explored webinar. It is brilliant to have so many of you signed up. I know a lot of you will be catching us on the replay, but I know some of you will be here live asking your questions as well. So thank you so much, whichever one of those two groups you are in. And today we are doing a brand new topic on eCommerce Explored. And that topic is all about how you become more efficient. And it's very cool getting to do new topics because eCommerce Explored exists to discuss and hopefully find some answers for you around these things, to discuss the questions that e-commerce brand decision makers are wrestling with right now. And I've been hearing loads about efficiency. How do we do more with less? Why am I spending all my time doing repetitive processes? I spend so long creating my reports that I don't have time to take action on what they're telling me. Sound familiar? Well, this session is all about helping you work out how to make your team more efficient. I know that probably leaves you feeling, oh, that sounds like a lot of change, Chloe. And yes, it might be. But from this session, you should leave with both ideas you can quickly implement to improve your workload ASAP and ideas for deeper implementation in 2025 to improve things long term. We also have loads of time to get your questions answered. I love it when you guys drive the conversation. So those of you who've joined us live, please add your cues to the Q&A box on the right of your screen as we go. You're welcome to start adding them from now because the earlier you add your question, the more chance there is of me asking it. Plus, our panelists often answer in the chat for you whilst we're live. They get all busy in the chat as well as on the screen. So it can be well worth getting those questions in sooner rather than later. And to prove the chat is working, why not let us know where you are dialing in from today? Where in the world are you guys joining us from? If you get that in there quickly, I might even be able to give you a name check before we join the panelists. Right, before I tell you about the panelists, a special thank you to our session sponsors, Report Toaster and Do Finder. It's great to have two tools that can save you a ton of time and improve your results. So kind of spot on for what we're talking about in this session. How can we be more efficient and how can we get more of the right data? Gotta love it when it all matches up. And you can find more about both of those if you scroll down your page a little. You'll find their logos and you can click through and have a look at their website and find out what they're doing. Okay, so who's on our panel today? Right, we have Sam Sesti from Report Toaster, who does so much work, and his apps do so much work to help businesses like you become more efficient. Very, very cool to have Sam here today. We've got Angelica from Do Finder. Completely different approach to efficiency, not on the back end, on the front end, but equally important one to get to grips with. And then we've got Oliver Rhodes, who is possibly our most anticipated guest ever. I can't see if you're blushing there, Oliver, but the number of people who've said, oh, really looking forward to the Oliver webinar. I'm like, there's more of us than just Oliver on it. So very cool to have Oliver here too from Nolo Apps, who is kind of bringing the Airtable to it, which is a whole new level of e-commerce efficiency. Very cool to have them with us. Have we had anyone? Oh, we've had one hello come through from Gethin. Hello, Gethin. Loving the flag you're giving us there. Anyone wants to send messages through, let us know where you are in the world, say hello, or ask us questions. Most importantly, please do that. But it's time we meet our panelists. So let me bring them all up on stage with me, and then we'll get them to introduce themselves far better than I just did. Sam, hello. Can we start with you, please? And then we'll work our way around in a clockwise direction. So, Sam, please let us know a bit more about you and Report Toaster.
Sure. Hey, everyone. My name is Sam, with one of the founders of Report Toaster. Report Toaster is a really powerful reporting and analytics app specifically for Shopify merchants. We started out about 4 years ago. We saw a need for more than cross-sell, upsell type apps, which there are lots of. We felt the back end was highly underserved, and that's where we went to work. I have a background in enterprise software and analytics, And so we take all of your Shopify data and make it available in a way that can give you more than where the Shopify reporting really falls short. But that we're more than that. There's the ability to give you alerts and automate reports and things and just save you time. So that's what we're here to talk about, but that's really where our value lies.
Excellent. Great to have you here, Sam. Angelica, please let us know a bit more about yourself and DoFinder.
Hello. So I'm leading product marketing at DoFinder, and I'm based in Madrid, in Spain, where our headquarters are. And we have been known for many years as a smart site search, but we have evolved. So today we are more. We are a complete solution doing search and recommendations. And I like to think of it as your trusted advisor in a shop. So when you go into a shop and you ask for something, that could be our search bar. So this trusted advisor gives you the products that you need. And now with the product recommendations, we are also covering when you are just browsing on the store, exploring the products, and the trusted advisor could recommend you the best products for you. So that's what we do now with the product recommendations. So we are covering the front end, offering the products that the customers truly want.
Very nice. Great to have you here. See, truly international webinar today. We've got the US, we've got Spain, and I think, Oliver, you're in the UK, same as me. So please let us know a little bit more about yourself and Nolo Apps. Oh, you're on mute.
Caught out. I was trying to be too careful with the mute.
I know.
I'm actually in Scotland, so we are bringing it. Yeah, there we are. Sorry, Gethin. I'm in Scotland. So I've worked in some way in operational efficiency my whole career, despite, if you know me, being some sort of form of organized chaos, which is some kind of irony to that. But I spent 11 years at PeopleVox, a warehouse system, and that was all about, like, when you have physical efficiency, it really brings home, like, where things are inefficient. You can literally see it. And then I've spent the last 3-4 years of my career looking at actual, like, sat at a desk efficiency, and I've had that contrast, and I had no idea that everybody sitting behind desks was so efficient in e-commerce companies until I started to look at, in particular, like, the product data workflow that people do, and like Google Sheets and Excel files, and that kind of insight in a roundabout way led me to co-founding Nolo Apps, where we build Airtable apps to automate and simplify processes where things that start life in an Excel file and a Google Sheet, and then on the other end of the scale you've got a big enterprise system and an ERP or whatever that you might need to implement. We help people kind of cross that chasm by taking things out of. Everyone's got too many Google Sheets. We know that. So copy, Control C, Control V, non-stop. Yeah, exactly. They're not all bad. It's not like some war of campaign against them. It's just particularly when you're handing them off between people.
It is interesting, isn't it, that point you make about real world stuff being more efficient than the desk bound stuff. And I bet if you surveyed all the e-commerce brands in the UK, in Europe, in America, I bet you would find the chances of their warehouse being inefficient to be about this big, and the chances of their head office team being inefficient being about this big. Because it is that weird thing of what you can't see, for some reason or another, you don't optimize. Maybe we'll come back to that later, but you just sparked that thought off with me there, Oliver. Okay, right. So we've got our panelists, we've got our audience. It's time we posed the first question. If you've not been on one of our webinars before, I like to kick us off with kind of some statements and some challenges to our guests to get the ball rolling and explore the big scope of all of this. So my suspicion with this is that most of the people who will be watching this are at the very beginning of their team efficiency journey. So my challenge to the three of you is, how would you complete this sentence? The best place to start making an e-commerce team more efficient is... who wants to go first on this one? Anyone want to jump in?
I can.
Cool. Thank you, Sam. I thought I was going to have to make it up myself then, everybody.
No. I mean, from our perspective, it's really look at where you're spending most of your time that isn't working on the business. we're more working in the business. So for us, we find that's, as Oliver was saying, Google Sheets, Excel sheets. Where are you having to deliver data, whether it be to a vendor, whether it be to your boss, whether it be to your accountant, whether it be to the tax authorities? Looking deeply at where that time is being spent and find out how you can cut that time short. Simple example that we run into every day is a merchant that may have a rev share that they need to have with a vendor, for example. What they're probably doing now is going into Shopify Analytics and or just the order exporting something to Excel or Google Sheets, putting in some fairly complex formulas, then taking that and emailing that to the vendor along with whatever other information they have. With our app, you can easily take that and turn that into a report that is available for you online, calculations happening for you right there live. Take that a step further. Now you can deliver that to your vendor automated through our scheduled reports. Take that even a step further, you could make that a live sheet that you can share a link with the vendor so they can see that report real time, all the time. Again, now you've just saved how many hours per month with how many vendors you have. We have companies with 100 vendors and they make this available for their vendors. That's, saving hours and hours a month. But again, it's digging into where those areas where you really may not even know you're spending that extra time because it's just such a part of your job. And then taking that, offloading that to a system or a framework, and then really getting into where you can affect the business as opposed to just working, very inefficiently.
I think from my intro, everyone will have understood how much I love automating reporting and all that side of things, because then you just free up your time to do the good stuff, which is analyze and make improvements rather than doing it. What I also love about your recommendation there, Sam, is pick one area of the business and get really good at automating it and improving it. Don't try and do everything on day one, because you won't make any progress. But if you build the skill set to automate one area, I think that's so cool. Oliver, you were nodding away there during that answer. So how would you finish off this sentence? What would you say?
It's like the practical steps to get to that point of going, like, that's the thing to automate. I think that's where I've had a lot of experience. So like the framework I use for that is I love there's a whiteboard tool called Miro. Starts from free. You get 3 boards free, so there's really no excuse. You can learn it in about 3.5 seconds. The moment you open it, you can click on it and you can make a post-it note. If you can make a post-it note, you can start mapping your process. And thing to do is think about your operational functions of your e-commerce business. So if you design and develop your own products, start with product design. If you don't design and develop, start with sourcing. And then map the operational functions from left to right, and then just start putting in like one post-it note for each key process or piece of data, mapping them from left to right. Like visualize, like your point is you can't see how disconnected all these systems are. You can't see the patterns in even your own work. It's really hard to see. So the first step is like visualize it, create that view of, I really like the left to right of how it all pans across, and then start to look at where like things aren't connected, but they could be connected. Like a really common one is if you have someone doing the listing and a different person doing product design, the person doing the product design and getting their data together, they sort of throw stuff at buying, and then maybe it gets thrown back to them, and then it gets thrown over. The ecom handover sheet appears. So actually, weirdly, my recommendation, when you do all of that, the first thing most people need to do is optimize your Google Sheets or Excel files, because you realize like even those sheets aren't compatible, or could we make these 3 sheets one sheet? And then build it out from there, and that will help you prioritize, because otherwise you just run around in the busy trap. Everything that's the most recently annoying thing becomes the thing you want to fix.
You remind me of a real frustration I had when I first started off in e-commerce 20 years ago, which was we were a mail order business, the one I was working for. So we had copywriters on staff who would write beautiful copy about every product, then that copy would get formatted it to fit in the catalog, which basically meant a couple of paragraphs would be cut down to one sentence. And by the time it made it to the website, all we had left was the sentence. Like everything else had been just disregarded. And if we'd had a decent system that didn't go through physical, beautiful PDF, not only would we have been more efficient, but we'd also have had better content on the website. Angelica, your take on this, where would you say the best place to start making an e-commerce team more efficient is?
Well, I knew you were going to talk about processes and reports, so I'm going to take a different approach, one that is often disregarded, and is look at your tech stack, because we use technology that enables us to do things faster or automatically, or makes us to do things step by step. As Sam said, sometimes you need to do multiple steps, look at the info in detail, instead of getting the insights readily available, or instead of having the tools working for you on autopilot. So one of those points is, of course, the site search. And we know that 50% of sales on an e-commerce are influenced by the search bar. So that's a very huge impact on how to optimize the conversion rate. And if teams can think of, are we having a search bar that is really optimizing the experience of our users, they could really be impacting the results and also the processes. Because if they can find a provider that just adjusts to the user queries and also sends you alerts on trends, like what's happening with your site search, what are people searching the most for, or what searches are bringing no results. So those are insights that can be also used for improving your catalog. So if you can have that running on autopilot without your team having to dedicate time to that, you could be already being more efficient without really changing anything painful for your team.
Yeah, I mean, like the people who kind of go, oh yeah, we've got a search piece, and we're supposed, they don't say the word suppose, but this is what they really mean. We're supposed to log in to this marketing tool, this CRO tool, once a week to tweak the results. And it's like, you never do. If it's not sending you alerts and it's not doing the automatic bits for you, it's not happening. And it's like, I think this is, it's a really interesting point. It's like sometimes efficiency is building tech to do the stuff you never get round to. It's like the stuff you think you're doing, but you're not actually delivering. Okay, guys. Loving the answers on this. The next thing, we're changing tack a little bit with our next question that I've got for you, or my next statement. She says, failing to find her slide deck. I think this is a big thing for e-commerce success in 2025. If you're not thinking about increasing team efficiency right now, you are going to be left behind in tech by your competitors. That's what I think. That's what I would recommend e-commerce brands do as we go into 2025, be to really look at how they can build efficiency across the whole piece, especially with the team. But you all talk to brands an awful lot more than I do. Oliver, you are deep in these challenges day in, day out. So what would your take be on this? Do you think this is crucial to keeping up with the competition?
I think to scale from, if you want to grow from 6 to 7 figures or 7 to 8, you need a source of like true leverage. And a lot of like, it's figuring out what your leverage really is. Like, is it like audience leverage in that you've got you're really naturally great on social, or like you've taken off on TikTok and like that's your thing that's getting you going. We're leveraging that, and no one else selling computer games controllers is doing that. So that's our thing. We're creating leverage there. Or is it that you've got a friend in like who's connected to the computer games controller industry, and he's got you the controllers at a much lower price. So you've got margin leverage, and you've been able to like price it premiumly. And then I think the third, which is like this team efficiency, is the most underutilized source of leverage, which is this operational leverage. And the company, there's many case studies now of some of the fastest growing e-commerce businesses are doing so with very small, like much significantly smaller teams to do the same amount of revenue. Like revenue per head in e-com is going up, and I think it has to go up. And you've got to find a way to tap that operational leverage. There's examples of companies like Crafted, who are the fastest growing men's jewelry brand in the world. Danny, the founder there's co-founder's done an incredible job. They're doing like many tens of millions with 25 people in their team. They intentionally run very lean and agile. And what they do is with every decision they make, they consider the operational effect on their business. Like when you say, oh, let's go from, we've got 1,000 SKUs, let's go to 2,000. Have you run the maths on how many more photos you need to do and how many more listings that's going to create and how many more suppliers you're going to need to work with, and how actually worked out what it looks like to go, is this thing going to scale? And if it does scale in that way, like how do we create more margin as well? Or are we just like growing revenue and not making more money, which is, vanity.
Yeah, growth for the sake of ego, not a good call. So Oliver, I would kind of say your take on this is it can be a great way to create difference and to create a winning formula, but it's not the only way to do it. So it could be a really good idea, but it's not essential.
I worked with a 30, they're probably close to 40 million pound business last year, where behind the scenes it was an absolute car crash. Honestly, you've never seen anything like it. And we put some very simple steps in there to improve the operational efficiency. And I think they've gone from being like, should have been hugely profitable to now being hugely profitable. But you can, you can grow revenue, but you're not going to make the margin that you could be. So efficiency is often about capturing that. I mean, what Alex is talking about with the search and recommendation, in my mind, that is an efficiency play, but it's actually about taking advantage of all your hard work. So you've gone out and bought all these products, then you've done all this merchandise planning, you've put the stock in, you're paying to store products, then you've listed it all, and then you've taken all the photos, whatever, and then people are coming to your website and you're not making the most of all these assets that you've invested in. So it's like efficiency is the end result. It's not it's like efficiency and productivity. It's not just doing things quicker. It's how do you,
Yeah, totally get that. Angelica, what would you say in this one? Do you think if you're not focused on efficiency, you're going to get left behind, or is it more nuanced than that?
I absolutely agree with the statement. And I want to build on what Oliver said, that it's not only what we see on the front end, it's also all the processes leading to that front end display. So product photos, product descriptions, all the operations come into putting the products on search and recommendations. That's a huge part of efficiency. And then the last mile of the efficiency could be how to quickly adapt and react to trends, change of season, and promotions in e-commerce, because it's a very competitive industry where things change from one day to the other. There's a new trend, they have to react. They have to adapt the product recommendations to respond to the trend. Or the weather changes and it's not anymore a flip-flop season, it's long pants season. So being able to quickly do all those changes with the technology you have on your e-commerce is really a source of efficiency for the teams.
I've seen some crazy cool case studies. Nobody asked me what the company was because I will not be able to remember it, but some crazy cool case studies about bringing weather data into site merchandising and also into ad spend. Like super, super clever stuff.
Yeah.
Sam, your take on this one. Would you say this is essential?
I think it's essential if you want to grow and you want to stay, competitive. I think I can build on something both Oliver and Angelica said, and some of the earlier comments is Oliver talked about leverage points and the ability to have these. Some of those seem out of your control in a way. If you don't have the friend that has the better margin, that's really not within your control. If you're not good at TikTok, that may not be well within your control. But in my opinion, efficiency and automation is within your control. It's something that everyone should be able to affect. And I think it starts with what Angelica said with a tech stack. I forgot to mention in my intro, I also run a 6 figure monthly Shopify store with a friend of mine, and we only can run it with such a small team because of efficiency and because of automation tools. We use ours, of course, but others as well. And I think the big issue that the challenge we run into with a lot of merchants is they want Shopify to be all in for $29 or $39 or whatever it is, the plus amount, whatever. And they become a little bitter when they have to buy more apps or get more tools. I see that as an opportunity, not as a burden. Like Angelica said, if you approach this as, hey, what is my tech stack going to be? If I look at all my silos of my different responsibilities within my store, and I said, okay, how can I make this one better? How can I make this better? How can I make this better? And what different technologies do I need, or different apps do I need to do this? I think you could make this so much faster, so much more efficient. Your customers could be in a more of a self-service mode where you've got chats that can answer the questions automatically, or search like Do Finder, where this can all happen without your intervention. Your customers will be happier. You'll have more time to do the things that really matter. But I do think in a lot of ways, it's a mindset change for certain merchants. Particularly, we find smaller merchants to be that way. But as Oliver said, some of these larger merchants, they just run inefficiently just because that's the way it's always been. But yeah, I think this is very important. And again, if you want to increase your scalability, it's essential.
I get totally where you're coming from. I am escaping that mindset personally, I would say at the moment. I currently, so way too much information, everybody, but bear with me. I currently run my business using 3 separate Google Apps licenses, like literally on different domains, 3 totally different ones. And I keep going, this is silly. I should consolidate. But to consolidate, I don't want that stuff arriving in that inbox. So I'd have to resubscribe with a different email address and change all of that over. Literally, I spend hours thinking about this when I'm traveling around or going for a walk. And it would save me about $50 a year. It's insane. I mean, yeah, if I was building it, I'd build it differently from the beginning. But right now, that is not a good thing for me to be doing. I should be looking at other ways of freeing up my time, not doing more admin. So totally get where you're coming from on that, Sam, because I'll put my hands up and I'm probably guilty of exactly that problem. Right, we're going to do one more of the slide deck points for the lovely panelists to answer. But you're all being very quiet out there today. I know you're there. If you've got questions that you would like the panelists to answer, we'll go big, we'll go small, we'll go mindset, we'll go techie, we'll go data. We don't mind. Please send in some questions. I've got plenty to keep us going for the rest of the hour. But if you who are watching us live right now have got questions, send them in. We want to know what you want to know about. Okay, I said we have one more that I wanted to take off the slide deck and share with you guys. So let's bring that up. This might take us away from efficiency. So if you want to go outside of efficiency, you're welcome to do that with this question. But I like to, because my panelists usually are spending a lot of time talking with brands, I love to find out what it is brands are hot for at the moment, what it is they're asking you about. So Angelica, I think I'll come to you first on this one. So what is the question you and your team are getting asked most by brands right now at the moment? What do they want?
So what they want mainly is to improve the relevance of search and recommendations without dedicating time. So it's also related to efficiency, how they can do more with putting less resources into play. And we have answers, of course, to that. The first of them is to use them in tandem, because in our case, we share data between search and recommendations. So you already have insights in combining those products that you can leverage, both for optimizing the results on autopilot and also to get more knowledge on your data. But then there's other things we get asked more sometimes, and is how can they do more with the data they have? So we always say you can use AI to analyze or to get alerts to know what's already happening on your store and what can you do. And as Oliver said before, it's a combination of many things. So we also encourage them not to only look at the front end and what they can do on search and recommendations, but also how can you use that information to impact all the operations that come before reaching the front end.
I find it fascinating how hard it is when you're talking about e-commerce teams in particular to talk about efficiency and not talk about data. It's like you cannot pull those two things apart. It's how do I get the data out of there? How do I make more of it? Sending it to other people, getting AI or machine learning to do something with it. How it's the data is so central to it all at the moment. I can see both Sam and Oliver are both sitting on the edge of their seats wanting to come in on this one. So Sam, simply because you're higher up the screen, I'll come to you first. So did you want to build on Angelica's point, or did you want to come back to my complete the sentence?
Yeah, I mean, a little both. I mean, the question that we get asked the most is, how did we not find you sooner? they, they just, you said it's all about data and knowing your business and understanding why things are happening, not just like, not why are they happening to me? Like, how can I affect what is happening? And you can't do that without knowing all of these things. And Shopify is a lot of things, but it's not a reporting platform. And so, you have to look elsewhere to get your data and tie it in with others' data from other systems to get a full picture. And so I think people struggle with this and they don't really know what they're missing until they stumble into it in a lot of ways. We find that people find us for all sorts of reasons, but once they do, they kind of, the light bulb goes off and they're like, oh my goodness, how did I live without this for so long? What was I doing? And so I'm sure that both Angelica and Oliver have the same experience with the people that they serve.
Well, I think building efficiency in is one of those things that the more you do it, the more addictive it becomes. It's kind of like when you get the hang of delegation, you inevitably end up over delegating because it becomes addictive. So I think the whole starting to build efficiency, you start finding more and more ways to do it, and it becomes a bit of an addiction, which is always very, very cool. And I imagine that's what happens with a lot of people once they start playing with your app, Sam. Oliver, your take on this one?
There's kind of three areas I get asked about.
Cool.
One's like, what's the right tech stack? Like what makes up the right tech stack, and particularly around Shopify. Other is like, when do I need an ERP? What is an ERP? Do I need one, and why? And the third is like, what on earth is Airtable? They're the three that I go across. For the purpose of this, I think like most valuable is like from a Shopify, back to the point you were making, Chloe, around like Shopify. There is I think maybe Sam made it. There's like the power of Shopify. If you've like recently come into it, or you've only been using it for a couple of years, Shopify's power is its app ecosystem. That's what it's got that no other platform has. It's got those tens of thousands of apps. Now, what it's also got is a couple of areas that are absolute no-brainers. They're slots that you need to put apps in. Like reports is one of them. Search and merchandising is definitely one of them. I think there's also like obvious gaps around like upsell and cross-sell. Bundles. If you don't do bundles, it's like you do bundles for the first time, you're like, whoa, I'm buying loads of bundles. Putting in a shipping software, if you're shipping from home, like you put in a ShipStation or a SendCloud or whatever, and it's like, boom, whoa, why didn't we do that sooner? I think people are having like similar light bulb moments with order editing app, which like allows you to, customer mucks up their order, they can go in and change the address, and then it like upsells when you change the address. There's some of the like most common ones. A help desk software, like people will just run off email, and then you try a ticket system, and it's like, whoa, God, that's like really got my blood pressure down. I was like monitoring my inbox, and then suppliers also email me at that address. A bit like your inbox problem. You're having customer support tickets come into your inbox. You're never going to get anything done. You're always going to feel busy and in reactive mode. They're the gaps you need to close. And then things like Matrixify for pulling data out of Shopify. It's just a no-brainer for like sucking things down. What else? Have you got any others? What would be your like absolutely, you've got to fill that slot if you're going to function?
I mean, I suppose the one the glaring one I would say you've not mentioned. I don't think you've mentioned. I was reading questions to work out what to bring in from the audience whilst we're doing this.
Yeah.
So if you did mention this, apologies, but I would go like with the email marketing. your CRM, your email marketing piece is probably the first thing most people install, I would think. Sam, you're deep in Shopify apps. Anything other than Report Toaster that you think is a slam dunk of an addition?
I think, Oliver mentioned quite a few, but I think, yeah, you're making like Klaviyo, or people use that as an email marketing type tool. Bundles, subscriptions. A lot of people that use subscriptions, and I know Shopify's dipping their toe into these things, bundles and subscriptions, but really, what people don't think they realize is all they're really doing is making a better API for the app ecosystem. They've formalized those APIs and stopped all the workarounds that were happening behind the scenes that these apps were using, and making things a little more technically viable, where they'll put the bundle in place. You can use Shopify bundles, but it's very rudimentary. Whereas you go get an app like a Simple Bundles or something like that, it's crazy the things that you can do. Again, like
it's a really good point, Sam. Really, really good point. Like, it's the same, like returns is an area that like you just got to get a return software. When you do it, it's like, aha. But again, like in that space, Shopify actually invested in a returns platform. The returns platform have helped them build out Shopify's API around returns and exchanges in particular, and then introduce their own functionality. But they'll only ever do a 3 or a 4 out of 10. They're not going to do like the 10 out of 10, because the thing you may not see is that their Shopify is going from literally startups to brands doing a few 100 million, and their roadmap is being stretched across that whole. If it's a elastic band, it's being stretched across the whole thing. So yeah, they just don't have the time to go deep in everything.
We are going off on a beautiful tangent that I would happily follow, but we've had some questions come in from the audience. I'm going to drag us back to the world of efficiency, although obviously tech stack can make or break your efficiency. We've had a question come in from Jessica Kent, who has asked a great question about how would you recommend implementing a more efficient process within a team? The documenting and communicating of a new process is the most time-consuming part, especially when it comes to preparing for new starters, etc. Ah, yes. So the age-old problem of all the organizational knowledge sits with the person who left yesterday. So who fancies coming in on this one? Are we gonna?
I can jump in.
Cool.
And I agree the documentation and communication part of the new process consumes time, especially because you want to get the message across and that people really understand and stick to the new process. But I find it more useful to spend more time on the analysis phase, like really understand what's the current process, where are the leaks of that process, and what's the goal of the processes. And once you really understand, I want to be there and I'm here, then you can start mapping the changes that you have to do. So I think spending the most time on the analysis phase could be the right starting point. And then the rest is just getting the ball rolling.
You've completely gone where I was going to go in my answer to this, which is bring everybody along in the journey. Like, get everyone involved in working out what you're doing. Don't just decree from above. And if you're doing that, then you can get everybody else to help you write the new SOPs, the new ways of doing things, the new training. And the other thing I would say is lean on your suppliers, because if you've got a supplier who's well embedded in your e-commerce store, I bet they'd be happy to do a training for your new starter or for anyone who's coming in to keep them up to speed. We've got nods going on there. I'm not talking complete nonsense. Sam, your take on this. I guess try and avoid involving the team too much, maybe, given what you do.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to things like this, I think it's Angelica kind of hit a good point. Is there something we come across every day? Is what is the real goal, and why are you doing what you're doing? And then you branch out from there, and you can bring this back to as far as communicating this stuff, you can bring it back to efficiency. I mean, there are tons of great tools out there, like Oliver mentioned Miro, or Scribe is another one to help you document your processes if it's an online only process. Look for other avenues to make this repeatable, efficient. Just look for tools, Notion, places where you can share things with your team. But again, I think that gets back to understanding why you do something. before you start telling everyone else how to do it.
I always think it's worth spending that extra 5-10% of the time to document it the first time you do it. So you've got like a team Bible ready for when a new starter comes in or when you're doing an induction process. You can just go, we're pretty certain this is up to date, run through it, yell if you find any inaccuracies. So then the induction process becomes an updating process. Oliver, I'm guessing you're dealing with this with your clients quite a lot. Any things to avoid that you've seen, naming no names, of course, or any things that are an absolute must to do this effectively?
Yeah, so like a precursor to this is having the right people in the right seats in the first place. And that might mean that if say you're a 10-person team, like in a 10-person team, you can't really afford to be mandating from above how everybody does their stuff. Like you're in that sort of early stage environment, you need to hire people that if they work in a spreadsheet all day, every day, like moving data around, they're going to go, oh, I've had a think and I do this and I've got a way that I think I could optimize this. But you need like at least one or two people who start thinking like that, because the change does, in a really small team, it does need to come from them to some degree. And you'll find that like a more, and this is actually comes down a little bit to like diversity of diversity of the people that you've got in your team. You know, I see it a lot in fashion businesses where they've got lots and lots of like more creative type people who love fashion and they're into fashion, but like a stereotype that would often be true there is you might have some people who are less strong in data or working with numbers. I'm speaking very, very generally here. Please no one hand me up over it. But having that like neurodiversity, you really need just one numbers process brain box can really sort everybody else out, like, and influence a team in that size. And if you're, as a founder, very creative, like, and you find you're good at like creating a story and creating a product, and that's your jam, it's highly unlikely that, you know, documenting and defining really structured, rigid process is also going to be your thing. Like, and trying to think of that, like classic, like, you know, creative founder, and then like an operator model. I often talk about like having your operator is the key, you know, in a lot of the combos I know of. Even when I talked about Crafted before, like Danny co-founded it with an influencer who did the influencing, and Danny did like the behind the scenes efficiency stuff. And it's the same with like Passenger Clothing, who I work with. They're this combination of the original founder, great creative, and then a load of like really smart operators who used to be at Surf Dome, who have done it all before. So it's having that, getting the team right before you even think, like, if I guess it's the questions like, oh God, I'm implementing process is really difficult. It's just like back to like first principles, like, whoa, have we got the right people? And is everybody up for change? Have we got the right mindset?
That reminds me,
because it shouldn't feel like pulling teeth. Your team should want change and want improvement.
Oliver, that reminds me of two stories I'm going to quickly share. One was a friend of mine who had someone in their business who was in charge of their accounts, all the bookkeeping, all the invoice raising, all the tax returns, all the rest of it. And they did a personality profiling and discovered she was the person who should least be in charge of accounts ever. Moved her to something more creative, put someone who actually liked filling in that kind of detail work, and it just made such a difference to the business just through doing some simple personality profiling. The other one, which is probably more relevant to the world of e-commerce, was maybe 10 years ago now. I was in the audience for a fireside chat with Johnny Bowden, the founder of Bowden, which for international listeners is a massive fashion business here in the UK. He founded the business, and during part of their growth journey, they realized that it was very important that he had nobody reporting into him. So he gets to be Johnny Bowden, and then there's a CEO who runs the business, and not even his own PA reports into him because he cannot do that detail stuff. Great for pushing the brand forward, great for marketing ideas, design ideas and so forth, but should not be anywhere near the ops. And I think I remember that's always stuck with me, partly because I think it was so refreshing at the time to hear someone that senior in a business going, I understand my role here, and it's not to be the boss, it's to be something different. So I love the fact you've taken us in that direction, Oliver. So a slightly linked one to what Jessica was asking us there, and also kind of linked to some of the stuff we've been skirting around as we've been going through this discussion, is a question that was put up on one of my LinkedIn posts about this event by Hannah Spicer, who's a Klaviyo consultant. And she asked a question about time tracking and what tools people use for time tracking, which, having run a marketing agency, I got quite addicted to time tracking a while back on how to make myself more efficient, my team more efficient, and all the rest of it, especially because my business is most of our overhead is human beings. So I want to know. But going back to that thing we were saying right at the beginning about e-commerce teams being very inefficient, and as Sam was saying, valuing their time so little compared to the $10 a month or $20 a month tool that could reduce their workload by 5 hours a week. Have you seen any e-commerce teams starting to adapt to undertake time tracking activity and actually getting to grips with where their team are spending their time? Another thing to throw into this very long-winded question, which I will stop in a second and let you guys actually answer, is Brightpearl did some research recently where they spoke to a whole load of retailers and worked out that on the average retailer wastes at least 350 hours of human head office time a year through things that should have been automated. So there's a huge time thing going on here. Any thoughts on that, Sam? As you're also a brand running an e-commerce store, do you do this for the e-commerce store? Do you do this for any part of your business?
Yeah, I mean, we do that at a high level for sure. I mean, I'm always looking at where are we spending our time? Why are we spending our time there? And again, I think it becomes about, in general, I think some of Oliver's points, some of this becomes about a mindset. People aren't going to feel enabled and emboldened to change the way they do things unless that direction sometimes is coming on from higher above. And it's more of a directive as, hey, you're free to free up your time. You don't have to be in the weeds all the time. And, I think that's something that just kind of has to seep into the whole business. Because if you look at like how we spend our time, and I look at maybe how, like, I think I wrote this up for one of our email campaigns actually.
Mm-hmm.
Here in the States, the average minimum wage is $12 an hour. And our lowest subscription cost for our app for small merchants is $9 an hour. That means that if they save 45 minutes, if they only value their time at minimum wage, which I would argue most of these merchants should value their time much more highly than minimum wage, then it pays for itself in 45 minutes. Now, let's say you value your time at $50 an hour. Now, suddenly, all you have to do is save like 7 minutes to pay for itself, right? People don't think that way, but they should be thinking that way. And that's where they should be thinking about how they spend their time. What I've found in life is that when people get stressed, they fall back to their comfort zones. And usually that's being busy because they feel like they can be effective if they're busy, whether that busy is good busy, bad busy, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's busy. I would argue that you're probably doing your best when you're not busy. Oliver, as a programmer, I know that we're inherently lazy and we won't do anything twice that we don't have to. We write a program to do that. And so I think that if people thought that way about processes and automation, they would be much better off.
Sam, I totally agree with all you say, and you keep zeroing in on my own character flaws. This is like a therapy session. It's brilliant. You're reminding me of all the things I do very badly. But it's so true, isn't it? We have stupid maths in our head when it comes to time, and I think it's that shift from the bootstrapping mentality of early days to going to the getting up to the 6-figure, to the 7-figure, to the 8-figure. And you've got to make a big old mindset shift there, both about your team and about about your own time too. Angelica, your take on time tracking and really focusing in on that team time efficiency part even.
Well, I love the point about putting value to your time. So you start understanding if you are spending time on really impactful things on your business or not. And I like to also rely on a very simple method, which is time blocking on the calendar. So at the beginning of the week, you know the key things you need to have done by the end of the week. So I put those blocks on the calendar, and then I leave blank blocks because I know all the things will arise. And I try to commit to those initial blocks, having them completed by the end of the week. And if needed, I rearrange them, but not deleting them. And then also I can analyze previous weeks. Where was my time? In which tasks? Did I really fulfill that planning or not? So I like to do the simplest way of that, just blocking time on the calendar where you have the complete overview and you can very easily see where you are putting your time.
It's like efficiency 101 that. Today I managed to clear my day out to purely work on these e-commerce Explore webinars. I've got so much done just because I was doing one thing all day. It's mad. Almost January is almost planned. Mind blowing considering where I was with it 12 months ago. And also one of my team has just we've just switched how she works so that she spends Mondays and Tuesdays purely focused on one of our big projects at the moment because she was finding going in and out of it during the week didn't work. So we've rejigged her time to make it easier for her to focus in on it. And then the rest of the week she works on other things. And it's made her happier for starters, but it's also meant we're getting further along with the project. So love that you brought that one up. Super simple stuff that anyone could implement tomorrow should they want to. Oliver, your take on time tracking, as you're helping businesses do major efficiency improvements, do you factor in time in a abstract sense or in a we know this person spends 4 hours a week on it sense? You're welcome to answer in a different way if you want.
Yeah, it's definitely a factor. So like one of the use cases that we build on Airtable is like Shopify product information management. So takes your product data from Airtable and it syncs it up into Shopify. So you might have multiple stores or you might be using markets. You might need to do translations. With solutions like that, it's obvious that you create a product once, then you put it in one Shopify store, then you put it in another store, and you put it in another store, and you've got 5 meta fields against all of them, and someone's rekeying it all, and then merchandising decide the price isn't quite right, so then you need to update it across all the different stores again. Now, it's usually pretty cut and dry for that particular use case that within 12 months it'll have covered its cost in terms of efficiency gain. But actually, like, I think the emphasis there, I try to think about things not just in terms of efficiency, because otherwise it can become a bit of a so what. So it's like, well, we'll be efficient. And then the question is like, so what? It's like, well, we'll be able to list products faster, yeah, but so what? What are you going to do with the time? Well, we can write better product descriptions. We'll spend longer reviewing them and optimize them. Okay, what else does that mean? It's like trying to get into the how does it become like what was it going to lead to strategically? Could be that you've already decided we're going to add 3 more like types of product to our business next year. So we're going to like the complexity of the product detail page is going to triple. And that's a reason to put in that type of automation. So that's like how I see it with like use cases. Usually you can boil it down to one thing that we know we're taking out that you're never going to have to do anymore. But then for actual time tracking, like I see like night and day with like how I run my life and organize my time versus like our team. Like most of our team are working on like a billable hours with clients, right? Back to your marketing daytime. So like our team, we use Airtable for resource planning, and the team put calendar appointments in, and then you allocate, that creates a record in Airtable and you allocate it to the project and it works out your time or whatever. So that's like how we do time tracking. But time tracking is like an entrepreneur, not in a billing your time past the hour. I think like in terms of getting awareness of where you're spending time, it's great, but I wouldn't be obsessing too much over that. If you're finding that usually what I find is when I start thinking about reorganizing my to-do list and time tracking and understanding where I could be more efficient, it's usually because I've taken too much on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely. What I'm gonna pull one thing out, Oliver. I'm running out of time, so I'm gonna have to stop you.
That's okay.
So the other thing I took, kind of reading between the lines of what you just said there, is that it's not just about valuing the cost of the time; it's about valuing the value of the output. Like I was saying earlier about, rather than creating reports, you're taking action on the reports. That turns that hour from being the $12 minimum wages into potentially a $20 or a $30 income. And I think that I took from what you were saying, which I thought was very cool. But we've only got 5 minutes left, which means it's time for me to ask the final question of you three, which is, as we always like to end these e-commerce Explore webinars with, if the audience took one thing from our session today on team efficiency, and it could be something we've talked about that you want to double down on, it could be something we've completely forgotten to talk about, I don't mind. But if they were going to take one thing from this to make an improvement to their business, what would it be? Oliver's looking absolutely lost in thought. So we'll start with Sam and work our way around the table. We've only got about 1 minute each on this because we're running low on time. So Sam, first up, what would you advise them to do? What's the key thing to take away?
I'll keep it quick. I think it's all of what we've said here is to boil it down to allow technology to help you get more out of your time. And from that time, spend time doing things that bring more value to your business than blocking and tackling, as we call it here. So, don't be afraid to spend a little extra money to make more money, because that the amount you're going to spend on the tech stack is going to pale in comparison to the time you're going to save and the opportunity cost with what you might do with that time.
That's the phrase I was looking for earlier when I was saying about how Oliver's was talking about not the cost, but it's the opportunity cost, the potential that you could be spending time. I love that answer. Thank you so much, Sam. Great to have you here. Angelica, your quick 1 minute on this.
So I think the relevant part is having the big picture, because it's not only the tech stack to automate part of your tasks. It's not only the process, it's not only the team, it's the combination. So I think understanding the big picture and understanding how each part influences the other parts is really how you can tackle team efficiency.
Love that. Another brilliant final point from Angelica there. And Oliver, 1 minute, sir. 1 minute answer, please. Your final takeaway.
Keep it simple. I think you can try and overcomplicate things by buying tools that are like way ahead of where you are. That can turn a simple task into a 15-minute step process. And likewise, if you're writing an SOP and you're on point number 25, you might need to think why you're filling that role again. Maybe the process sucks and no one wants to do it. And is there a simpler way to do it? You're overcomplicating it.
Love that advice. And apparently Oliver has now taken on the mantle of identifying Chloe's character weaknesses. That's 3 we've identified in this webinar. And I thought I was a master of efficiency. Clearly, I've got some way to go. Thank you, panelists, so much for being here today. I'm going to take you off screen now, but if you stick around, I will chat to you afterwards. There you go, audience. Secret events happen after you've all gone. If ever there was a reason to come and apply to be on the show, there it was. Right. Okay. What did I want to tell you all? I want to thank you all of those of you who have joined us live. Thank you so much. I really hope that has helped you get some ideas for building efficiency into your business right now and as we go into 2025. Huge thank you to our 3 panelists for bringing their awesome to our show. Huge thank you to our sponsors, Report Toaster and DoFinder. Without the support of the sponsors, we would not be producing this content. It would definitely not be worth my time, and I would be using the opportunity cost of that time to do something else. So huge thank you to both Report Toaster and DoFinder for being sponsors of this session. And we've got 2 coming up before the end of the year. which you are welcome to come and join us for. Just head to webinar.ecommerceexplored.com. You will also find the link for that in the replay email you will get later on today, where you can share this with your team. Step 1 on becoming more efficient, maybe watch the efficiency webinar together as a little bit of a lunch and learn, and work out how you can build those methods, those ideas into the business. And then come and join us in November. We're talking about cross-border growth, super practical growth session. And then if you're in the world of B2B e-commerce, then come join us for our B2B e-commerce session in December. For now, though, have a lovely rest of Thursday. Cheers, everybody. Bye.